Hello, everyone. It's Matt from Akuma Mods back with our review of the Anycubic Photon S. So I've had this printer for roughly about 6 months now, and I never got around to doing an actual review. This was before I decided to start doing a whole YouTube thing and showing people my thoughts on the printer, whether it be good or bad, whatever it may be. But I figured I'd pull all my old machines out and start doing some updated reviews so you guys can see them and kind of have a little determination on what these printers were, how they worked, and am I still kind of using them type of thing. So so this is the Anycubic Photon S. It's basically the upgraded version of the Anycubic Photon. One of the things I'm going to point off right off the bat, and I know this is a common thing for everybody to say, but I absolutely hate this design with the plastic. They basically cheaped out to give you a little better parts, upsell it at a higher price, but it's basically a similar machine to the Photon. So that's one of the things that I have. My largest gripe about this machine is that it is an ABS plastic, so it is kind of a heavier duty, but it feels cheap. And it seems to be that this was kind of like Anycubic's big brain idea to say, hey, we can make a cheaper machine for a similar price or more, and it'll still sell. So with that being said, there are some pluses to this machine. So don't just look at it as, oh, well, this is a really cheaply built machine, which it kind of is. But in a lot of ways, it isn't. So we'll get into that right now. So as you can see, it looks just like the regular Photon. But inside and internally, they are two different machines. So they do supply the same type of board that the Photon and the Photon S both have the same type of boards. The LED array is vastly different from the regular Anycubic Photon to the Photon S. This actually has the first version of like the LED array, the matrix. Matrix is what they call it. I always forget that name. The LED matrix was one of their big selling points on this. And it produced some amazing prints. It was vastly marketed to be a far better printer. I don't think it's like an insanely better printer, but with the parts that it does supply, it fixes all the issues with the Anycubic Photon. So that being the first one, okay, then the second one being the Dual Z. Or linear rail, I should say, not Z. So it's got a single Z rod, and then it's got dual linear rails. Now, you can also upgrade your Anycubic Photon to a dual linear rail system by someone named, I'm probably going to butcher his name. I want to say it's Peter Jackson. I could be wrong about that, but it's like Jackson Products. He's based out of the UK. He does them for the Elegoo Mars and the Anycubic Photon that I've seen so far. But you can basically upgrade your regular Photon to be a Photon S, so to speak. You are still missing the LED matrix, but that's kind of so-so. Is that make it a whole of a lot better? It's kind of so-so. But yeah, the other added addition to this is, unlike the Anycubic Photon that has a active charcoal filtering system, which I don't believe in any way, shape, or form. It is, if it is, mine's broken. And it's been broken from factory, and I just never got around to fixing it. Because when I had the regular Photon printing right next to me, all I can smell is resin fumes. So whether it be low odor or high odor, I can smell it all day long. With this one, not so much, because we actually have two active charcoal filtration systems that are raised up above, and they seem to work pretty well. So I don't really have any issues with that. But yeah, for the most part, it's pretty much the same exact system, just with some minor upgrades. Now, does that make the printing experience that much better? Maybe just a little bit. So, in terms of like the price difference between them, right now this unit is still going for $299 on Amazon. And I'm not really sure why it's still going for that price, considering the current models that they have out, which I personally think are a little bit lower quality than the older models are. Talking about the Mono and the Mono X, they're cutting back on the whole enclosed area and basically trying to source all their quality into the parts and everything, which that's still kind of iffy right now because everything's still kind of new. So they're getting into different type of printers. So, but in my opinion, if you want a little better bang for your buck, go with the Mono SE. It's an old style look for the Anycubic Photon, but you have all the new upgrades for it. So again, that's really it decides on what you're looking for exactly. At $299, this is not too bad of a price. Obviously, as of right now, with the whole monochrome screen, you really got to weigh your options on that. Do I want a good quality printer or do I want a fast printer? So, and that's kind of where it's going right now because some of the budget printers, like there's the Voxel Lab Proxima that's out there. That's just over $200. That's a monochrome screen. I'm still testing that one out to see, is it a little bit better printer, but it kind of, mimics a Anycubic Photon, a newer one. So, I wonder if they source from them. We'll have to find that out or not. Yeah, there's also the Creality LDH, which is a fantastic machine so far. But again, sourcing parts for that right now are kind of non-existent. So if you mess up the screen or scratch it or break it in any way, shape, or form, you're SOL right now. You got to go through the manufacturer to get it. So that's not really a great thing. The other cool thing about these printers is you can customize them through the photonsters.org. They do have certain firmwares on there. If you have an older firmware, you can actually hack this and do some cool stuff with it. One of the cool things about these Anycubic printers is they have a really, really cool tool for exposure settings that does it insanely fast. You do it in one print, basically. And it's an exposure setting where it sets each and every part of the print at a different exposure. So that way you can tell whatever resin you have poured in here, you can find out that exposure setting in pretty much in one go. Whereas most of these other printers, they don't have that ability. You got to do calibration matrix print, and it takes roughly about an hour, depending on if you have a good sweet spot. If you're just basing off of no numbers, it takes about an hour to dial in a bottle of resin, and that's dialing it in just to get you in the area. To like super dial it in, you're looking at an hour and a half to 2 hours. But if you super dial it in, you're pretty much good for the bottles of resin for the future. Now, obviously, resin does vary from batch to batch, so you might have to tweak just a hair here and there. So that's why I just say take an hour and you can do that. Whereas this will do a print in probably 15, 20 minutes, half hour at the most, and you're done. Like that's it. So definitely a better in terms of time consuming type stuff. But yeah, for the most part, the machine parts that are inside of here are super, super high quality. I've had no problems with this printer. This is another one that I haven't really printed with in a long time. It's been probably 4 or 5 months that I haven't printed with it. And that's just because I have other printers that are much bigger and they just kind of do all the jobs in one go. So I'm looking to start unloading some of these older printers because I don't really use them and somebody else can. So, if they're willing to, pay the shipping and whatnot for it, or if we do a giveaway for it, you got a nice used printer for really, really nothing. You're just paying for shipping more or less. But yeah, if you guys are looking to get into resin printing, this is a fantastic printer. It's got a great history behind it. It's kind of the leader in the smaller resin printers, especially with the original Photon. The Photon S, like I said, is just kind of like an upgraded version. The build plate and build volume is pretty much exactly the same. Just it's got, like I said, the dual linear rail upgrade as well as the upgraded UV LED matrix, which again, quality is just maybe a slight bit better over the regular Photon, but in terms of the print not failing due to a machine issue, that's where the dual linear rail system really shines, because that was a big issue with the Anycubic Photon, because it had that single Z, and it would tend to like drop down a little bit sometimes and cause a giant flat footing. So if you were printing on a build plate, it was just you were having a hard time doing it. My Elegoo Mars had a huge issue with that. My regular Photon didn't really have too much of an issue. It had just a slight, but my Mars was really, really bad. So to have an upgrade like this for any printer is definitely a good thing. And there's not too many printers that actually have a dual linear rail system that are on a smaller side. They are usually a single linear rail, single Z. So that might be why the price is still set a little bit higher than most of the printers out there, because it still does kind of put it in a little bit higher range. So do as you wish is that with that information that I give you. But yeah, if you're looking for a solid machine to be a starter, the Photon or Photon S are two great printers. Like I said, they got a great history of printing for resin printers. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. So if you guys got any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and leave them down below. I'll leave some affiliate links to Amazon for the Photon S here, and some of the resin. I don't really even have some of the prints that I printed off of it, because, like I said, I haven't printed with it in a while, so I'm sorry for that. And yeah, like I said, if you got any questions, just go ahead and leave them below. But that's pretty much it, guys. Till next time, happy printing.